Hey guys, the Wolf here. I wanted to stop in real quick and give you the second part of the mini course where we're actually walking through my 5 steps on how to write a speech, video, presentation, talk, doesn't matter. And I want to walk through my steps in my process with you. As you remember, real quick to review, we start with what. So what is it I want my audience, my listeners, my people that I want to sell something to know when they get done with this video, this presentation, this talk. And that's going to be my conclusion. That's what I'm going to wrap up my story with. So in this example, the one I picked, as I mentioned earlier, was success principles from the Gospels. And from the introduction standpoint, I think I'm going to start with the standpoint of we're always looking for more new and exciting and a new twist on a success principle that we can apply and change our life dramatically, aren't we? Don't we all do that? I know I do. I'll be honest, raise my hand and be in that group. But what if I told you that all the principles that are talked about today and even over the past 200 years come from a book that's about 3,400 years old? The book started with stories that were passed down from generations and people in that time, in more of an agricultural time. They were just passed down from family to family, from kings and from patriarchs of the family down to the other folks in the family, and passed along through generations. But then finally they started to get written down on, probably papyrus, what was that paper called back in the day? And it was scrolls. And now we have an actual physical book. It's the best sold book in the world that's over 3,400 years old. Different iterations, different versions and translations. But if we go back to the original, all these principles are there. And today I want to show you how that is going to apply to our lives. So we can simplify things, make our lives simple and easy. And I'm going to pick just a few to walk through with you. So that would be kind of my introduction. Just a snippet. I need to refine it, make it a little more impactful, but that's kind of a snippet of it. But what do I want them to walk away with? So my conclusion is pretty much going to be pretty simply, once I've hit my 3 points, I'm going to come back and say, so based on what I've shared today, 3 big points to take away with. And with just those 3 points, I believe that it helps you to understand and to know that there's nothing new under the sun. All the success principles that we work through today, that people talk about online, all these big motivational speakers, all the concepts are nothing new. And not to put them down, they're doing a great job. I listen to those videos, I listen to those speeches, and I get inspired and motivated. But that motivation drains and dwindles over time. But I'm telling you that if you take the time to dig into this book, read the stories and understand where these people were in their time. What was the context of what they were dealing with? What were some of the things that they had to struggle and go through to get to where they made it? Success came, but it took hard work, persistence, it took faith and belief, and it took knowing. He had a mindset that this is going to happen. It's just a matter of time and effort. Simple as that. So I hope these 3 things have affected you today. I hope you walk away with really thinking about them each and every day, but implement them into your lives. And I think it's going to make a grand difference in what you do every day. Again, introduction, conclusion. And how do I want to deliver this? Well, we talked about persuade, inform, inspire, educate, and there's even entertain. So I'm not entertaining in this case. I'm really trying to inform, inspire, and persuade folks, because I want to persuade them to dig into the Bible. Then not look at the Bible as a religious book, but look at it as a resource. The stories in there, if we read the stories and really understand the context and what's going on and what they're dealing with, they'll understand that there's a process to life and that nothing happens overnight. Everything has a seed time, progression time, growth time, and then a harvest time. So my 3 points that I'm going to deliver in this speech are going to be simple. 1, believe it and achieve it. Napoleon Hill. If the mind can conceive it, if the mind can believe it, then the mind can achieve it. But I think the challenge in that phrase, in that quote, is the belief part. Do we really believe that we can achieve it? And this takes a little measure of faith, and it takes a little measure of just mindset to persuade yourself that I'm going to know this is going to happen, and that I'm going to be committed to the actions to take to get there. Mark 9:23, if a man believe it, he can achieve it. And I think Mark 11:23, in that little section there, he also talks about faith. That if you have the faith when you pray, that you expect it to happen, your prayers will be answered and it will happen for you. And then in Paul, I'll look up the exact verse, but Paul talks about, I went from persuaded to knowing to committed, but that was through his walk with Christ. So that's point number one, believe it and achieve it. Point number two would be persistent and hard work and effort pays off over time. And this brings me back to the story of the ambitious sower. The sower sowed the seed. Some of the seed fell on the rocky ground. Some of the fell on the soft ground. But some of the seed fell on the fertile ground. The rocky, it came up, got scorched, died. The ones with the weeds, it grew up, but the weeds choked it out and it died. But the seed sown on good ground returned to 30, 60, even 100-fold return. So what it says to me is that the ambitiousness of sowing whatever your seed is, whatever your method is, your product is, your ideas are, if you continue to sell those and be ambitious about it and be continuous, because if you notice in the story, the sower didn't stop sowing when it fell on the rocky ground or when it fell on the ground with the weeds. He continued to sow. And then some of that seed came up and gave a return, multiplied. And then third, we're going to talk about the world is better with love. Now, I'm not talking about that touchy-feely, hugly, kissy, touchy-feely love. I'm talking about the kind of love that is agape love, that unconditional love. For lack of a better term, I'll use one phrase that a lot of people get. Unconditional love is like that love of your Labrador Retriever or your poodle or your Dotsie Poo or your Yorkie Poo. The love of a dog is just unconditional. I don't care, with a few exceptions, on extreme situations. You can spank a dog, you can punish a dog, but when you leave the house and come back in, that dog's patter-pattering coming up to find you, looking for you at every turn. That's unconditional love. And that's the type of love I'm kind of talking about. But in the human world, I would say agape love really is that type of love in which you prefer the other person to have success over yourself. You prefer them to have things before yourself. The sacrificial love, the love that Jesus gave us. You know, he took the form of a man, walked the earth, beat, bludgeoned, tore up, scratched, scraped, cut, just beat to a bloody pulp, and died for our sins. That's sacrificial love. And I'm going to tell a bit of that story. But the point is, in Corinthians, Paul talks about the best thing is love. That no matter how good I am in my speech, no matter how good a person I am, no matter what I do in my life, if there's not love, I don't have a chance. Nothing else matters, because we have to love our neighbors as ourselves. We have to love God and love others as ourselves. So that type of love is a sacrificial, unconditional, and not self-driven. We need to take care of ourselves, yes, but we need to be sacrificial in that love and giving of others. So we need to give others place. We need to give them sometimes preference over ourselves. Not from a standpoint of abuse or taking things that we shouldn't take, that are they're not human, not bad humanity or bad treatment. No, we're not talking about that. But it's a matter of giving the folks around you the benefit of the doubt, maybe. So those three things, that believe it, achieve it, persistence and hard work pays off, and the world is a better place with love, are the three basic premises I'm going to use in there. And use probably about 5 minutes per topic there. I'm going to throw in a couple of those stories for each one of those and have that play out there too. So the introduction I talked about, but I'm going to probably use the idea of a question / a startling fact and mix those two. Because like I mentioned earlier, it's like, what if I told you a book that's 3,400 years old can give you all the answers to success you're looking for? Would you want to pay attention? Would you want to read that book? Well, let me give you a few snippets, and I'll dig into it like that. And then, of course, the practice, drill, and rehearse. That's the time and the effort it's going to take me to kind of walk through get the stories right, write them out, include what I need to keep it to the time frame I want to use, but get my point across as succinctly as possible. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, because I think that's going to be, this is the case study, if you will, to give you the examples of how do I put the speech together and begin to formulate it. And again, let's remember that speech, video, social media post, whatever it is, we can shrink it to the time frame we need to have. If it's 1 point, we take 1 point. Quick intro, quick conclusion, and the meat of the sentence. Again, you'll fit it to the time frame you have. Thanks for watching. Hope it added some value. I think it did.